Welcome to Inside Athletic Training, a podcast from the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society and the ultimate destination for athletic training professionals, students, and educators looking to learn more about sports medicine and athletic training. In each episode, we'll dive headfirst into conversations with experts in the field, bringing you insights, stories, and cutting-edge information about athletic training and sports medicine. This week on Inside Athletic Training, we're extremely excited to share our conversation with the former commissioner of Major League Baseball, Commissioner Selig, and his great friend and former Milwaukee Brewers Vice President of Medical Operations, Health and Safety, Roger Caplinger. We sat down with Commissioner Selig and Roger to discuss the athletic trainer's all-important role in Major League Baseball and much more. All right, Commissioner Selig, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today and your support of PBATs throughout the years. Baseball is a game riddled with injuries, many unlike those seen in other professional sports. Men like Roger Caplinger have spent their entire careers working hard to ensure the health and safety of players. Can you talk a bit about the important role of the athletic trainer in baseball and the value they bring to each organization?
Well, in all the years that I owned the Brewers, the trainers were always important, critical to me. But I never realized until the whole steroid issue how important they were not only to the team, but to baseball. And so you're talking to somebody who has just enormous regard for the athletic trainers. Not only their skill, but their knowledge of everything that's going on. And I can tell you that obviously keeping players healthy is very important. Learning all the new things that are happening. But what I came to find out is during the steroid issue, when I was trying to find things out, I insisted, as Roger knows, in having a meeting with the professional athletic trainer. After that, I insisted on meeting with them at least once every 2 or 3 months. And they were my greatest source of information. And they were far more helpful as we not only solved the problem, but today have the toughest testing program in American sports as well as in America. They played a major role in that. I really mean that. They played a major role. So you're talking to somebody who's forever grateful in the critical role that they played in solving that problem. Of course, they do remarkable work keeping their players healthy. Don't get enough credit, get blamed sometimes by people like me who, when your team goes bad, you got to blame somebody, but I'm being facetious. But my respect for the professional athletic trainers is just enormous.
And you mentioned the meetings you had throughout your career with men like Roger. What did you gather from those meetings that made them so impactful during your time as commissioner?
Well, what was impactful, really impactful, maybe even more so, was that I had been trying to find things out. What went on? Nobody seemed to know. Nobody knew this. Nobody knew that. When I commissioned my friend Senator Mitchell to do the job, finding information was difficult. When I went to meet with them and started meeting with them, I found out more things that had gone on, still going on, which is why we solved the problem. Solved the problem because they told me all the things going on, and we were able, George Mitchell and I and others, to construct solutions to the problem. They were just, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed meeting with the trainers. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed meeting with them. Because they were not only candid, but they were knowledgeable, and enormous respect for the game. And so, as a result of solving one of the most difficult problems in baseball history, they played, in my opinion, a really dominant role.
And Commissioner Selig, we know how important baseball is to you and your family and how it is just a family game for many across the country. Can you talk about the athletic trainer's role in taking care of so many young kids as they start their journey in professional baseball and why that's so important to you and the game that you love?
Well, that's how you build trust. You build trust by the players knowing they're going to get not only the best treatment, but sensitive treatment. And these guys have done an absolutely remarkable job. It's the kind of job, it reminds me a little bit of the commissioner's job. You don't really get credit. Easy to get blame, and you do get a lot of that. But they play such a wonderful role, not only in keeping them healthy, but in guiding them in other things. So as the years have gone on, in my opinion, their role's gotten greater and more important. And they've lived up to everything that we've ever done for them. But, I'll get back to the whole steroid thing because that was really one of our crisis moments in baseball history. And the role that they played right from the start, I meet with team doctors, and they were wonderful, don't misunderstand. But nobody helped me more than the athletic trainers. And so I'm forever grateful for that.
You mentioned that you're grateful for your relationships with athletic trainers, and we know so many players are equally as grateful for having great relationships with the people who took care of them throughout their careers. Seeing how the game of baseball has changed so much over the past few decades, and talented athletic trainers have played a huge role in that, how do you feel about the athletic trainer's role and somewhat underrated role in affording players the opportunity to have longer, more successful careers?
Well, it may be underrated to some, but it isn't to me. It's very important. I mean, look, you win because you have your players on the field that you need. And so the person or persons, multiple, keeping them on the field with all kinds of different injuries and the mental role is important and all that. And that's where these guys fill a tremendous role. And I know I've said this before, but I have to tell you, what always impressed me as I talked to them, and Roger was there, we had endless conversations. I got to know a lot of them well. To this day, I'll see them on television, and I get a kick out of that. But they really not only keep them healthy, but they learn how to keep them mentally healthy and happy, which of course solves a lot of other problems. So you can never underestimate the role of the professional athletic trainer.
The athletic trainer role has clearly been an important part of your career. So when you think about all of the issues that you took on head on as Major League Baseball's commissioner, steroid abuse, spit tobacco, among others, what are you most proud of in terms of the work you've done with athletic trainers in baseball?
I tell you what I'm proud of. In moments of trauma, in moments of enormous tension, they came through. They came through in a way that was not only meaningful, but really helped baseball history and helped the sport. And they knew that. Their love for baseball was remarkable. They care about the game. A lot of people care about themselves, but they don't really care about the game. These guys cared about the game, and it came through. And that's why I enjoyed my meetings. I think they know how I feel about them. And to this day, I'm proud to be associated with them.
And moving in another direction, I want to talk briefly about the origins in baseball for you. As a Milwaukee native myself, I'm curious to know, how did you find the passion and the drive to do what it takes to bring a team to Milwaukee in 1970? And what have the Brewers meant to you and your overall career in baseball?
Well, that's another great story. The Braves left, tried to leave after 64, left after 65. This was a lonely, tough place. People mad. If anything, I underestimated the anger towards baseball. But I kept at it, had an exhibition game in 67, brought the White Sox here in 68 and 9. And tried to buy a team through expansion, got turned down. They were lonely, really tough year. Got turned down in both leagues, tried to buy the White Sox. We were down to the end. It was 5.5 years. Think about that. And finally, on the night of March 31st, 1970, the Milwaukee Brewers were born. We were probably at the end of the road, and mercifully, Seattle wasn't ready for a major league team. But everybody around me kept asking me, how can you keep going? I mean, this is because it was difficult and disappointing. But I had a dream, and in the end, you have to do what you have to do, and you have to do it every day. The only thing I'll tell you about that, 12 years later, we're in the World Series. And I can remember I had gotten home, we had won the pennant, and I had turned the radio on, and he said, well, the 79th World Series is going to begin between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers. And I started to cry because I think of all those lonely days, and here we are now, we're playing in the World Series. And so a lot of great players, Robin Yount, Henry Aaron, Cecil Cooper, on and on and on to this day. And so I'm proud of what they meant, and I'm proud of Milwaukee because Milwaukee has produced remarkable attendance. This year they're going to draw 2.5 or 2.6. The metropolitan area population is 1.4. I mean, it's amazing.
Commissioner Selig, on behalf of myself and PBATS, I want to thank you not only for pursuing your dream and bringing a team to Milwaukee, but for all the great things you've done for the game of baseball throughout your entire career. We're all extremely grateful for your work and your commitment to the game. Next up on this episode of Inside Athletic Training, we sat down with Roger Caplinger, the former Vice President of Medical Operations, Health and Safety, and longtime athletic trainer for the Milwaukee Brewers. All right, Roger, you've had a storied career with the Milwaukee Brewers. You've overseen building the sports medicine department for many years. When you initially got to Milwaukee, did you see the role of athletic trainers, specifically yourself, growing into such an important part of baseball as it is today?
Yeah, I don't think anyone could forecast what the game and athletic training and basically sports medicine has evolved into. At that time when I came into the big leagues, it was a head trainer, an assistant trainer, and maybe a strength coach. And now you have a large department of medical personnel, strength and conditioning, sports performance, psychology, nutrition. You have all those individuals helping and ensuring that you put the product on the field that can have the availability of 162 games.
And take us back to the early days of your career in Milwaukee, Roger. Could you have ever imagined the resources and organizational support that athletic trainers and staff members are getting in the current game?
I don't think I could have imagined, number one, the education of individuals that are in our sport that are at the top of their profession, the tools that we have to use, the technology that we have to use to understand how to ensure that we can put all of our available resources to having a major league and a minor league system that is productive over year after year after year to get those players to the big leagues and then retain that talent in the big leagues.
And as a big league athletic trainer and someone who's always striving to learn, to grow, to improve, and to get better at their job, how impactful was PBATS in helping you become the athletic trainer that you wanted to be?
Yeah, I think PBATS has done an exceptional job. I think you have to give credit to the founding fathers. Those men had a huge undertaking because they thought they were going to be a union. The baseball did, or the Players Association did, and they basically wanted to form a group so they could educate themselves to the best possible medicine and research that they could have to treat their athletes. And, back in the 80s when PBAT started, we as athletic trainers couldn't attend the National Athletic Trainers Association annual meeting. It was in the summer. and we were working. So those founding fathers were able to say, hey, we need to educate ourselves. And we could do that at the winter meetings. They had, sidebar meetings in conjunction with baseball. And so it was very important for them to educate themselves. And then the cascading effect of how they educated other athletic trainers within the minor leagues. And then now come to fruition, we have a huge contingent of athletic trainers, physical therapists, strength and conditioning that PBATS set the foundation for.
And Roger, when you think about PBATS, I think a lot of you and your colleagues think about the friendships within the society and kind of a brotherhood that exists between members. What does PBATS mean to you as a person when you think about those friendships and the brotherhood and kind of the relationships you've made over the years?
Yeah, I think our brotherhood is second to none. Particularly in my personal life, I had some health struggles, issues 5 years ago, and the phone would ring off the hook, and emails would come in, and text messages. It is really truly a family. It has grown exponentially, but I think our leadership, our executive committee, has enabled the membership to continue to be cohesive. And that's key in any organization because we all strive for one mission, is to educate ourselves, but also promote athletic training and how important athletic trainers are to this game, to keep players for injury prevention, also rehabilitate injuries to get them back as quickly and safely as possible.
And when we talk about the mission of PBATS and really just doing things the right way for the game that you all care so much about, whether it was steroid abuse, spit tobacco, or other important health-related issues, how does it make you feel as a member of PBATS that the group has been able to stand up for what's right in the game and really just make sure they're doing the right thing for baseball during those tough times?
Well, I think that the PBATS society has based itself on scientific evidence, and that then portrayed itself to giving recommendations to Major League Baseball on those various topics to understand how we can be stewards of the game and also how we can inform MLB to make decisions on various platforms such as spit tobacco or drug testing policies or other initiatives that they may have. We were one of the first entities to revise some rules based upon concussions and the evidence of that. And we did a lot of research on that. We had committees that were committed to ensuring that we would keep player safety at the forefront.
And Roger, one thing that many people in PBATS remember most about you and your career is the electronic medical records called EMR. You were a pioneer in getting this done and making this happen. Talk about how you were able to get the EMR going, the historical aspect of it, and also why creating the electronic medical records system has been so impactful to sports medicine and baseball.
Histologically, everyone was doing their own injury tracking or injury surveillance. No one entity, Major League Baseball, had a complete comprehensive medical record system. So it was conversation with Commissioner Selig and saying, hey, I think we need something bigger and broader because every major and minor league player may not have a complete comprehensive medical record. And so we went in partnership with Athlete RMS, with MLB, this triangular partnership to ensure that all 30 clubs were utilizing the same platform, inputting information into this medical record to ensure that we could properly document injuries and then take that to the next level of injury surveillance and injury tracking to understand how we were as a unit, MLB, understanding how to rehab injuries or track injuries or what's the most prevalent injury in the beginning of the season comparative to the end of the season. And how do we form committees or athletic trainers and team physicians to understand these are the most prevalent injuries. How can we try to prevent these injuries? And that's the concept of the EMR. And it was a arduous process. We had some great athletic trainers from various clubs help us ensure that we got this together. And it is exponentially, I bet, the best EMR in professional sports.
Getting into a bit more about you and your career personally, we ask a lot of your colleagues on the podcast what advice they have for younger athletic trainers looking to break into the game. If you could go back and give a young Roger advice about athletic training and his upcoming career, what advice would you share?
I think that's a great question. I think that to give myself some advice is to be open-minded, to learn as much as you possibly can, and to actually feel like, how do I apply this in a systematic fashion? When I became the head athletic trainer of the Milwaukee Brewers, I summoned 5 individuals to give me one piece of advice. And I'll never forget the late Dr. Lou Yoakum from the Los Angeles Angels. He gave me a piece of advice that stuck with me my whole time and my whole career. And I actually tell this to other young athletic trainers. His advice was, you can't heal everybody. And it's true. And you as an athletic trainer strive to do that. But you have to understand that everyone is different. And you have to think outside the box. It may not be written in a journal. It may not have been documented, but injuries happen, and you have to understand how to systematically go through a protocol and understand that you can replicate that all the time. And I think that's my advice to younger athletic trainers.
And diving deeper into that, talk about your time in the minor leagues, how important that was for your development as an athletic trainer, and also the importance of being able to make mistakes as a young athletic trainer without the spotlight of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I think every year or every season is a learning year. I think for me, I would set goals for every year to understand, okay, what in A ball, what am I going to strive for this year? What am I going to do? And talking with the organization and your coordinator or your head athletic trainer, and to strive for those milestones that you want to meet, and set reasonable, attainable goals for yourself. I know that I told myself if I wasn't in the big leagues at a certain period of time, I was going to go to med school. I mean, I think those are things that you as an athletic trainer should set goals for to understand, hey, I don't want to get stranded in the minor leagues. I think a lot of people, I would say the majority of people their goal is to get to the big leagues, but it's just like a player. Got to stay in the big leagues, right? And there's people coming up from below you that want to take your job. And it's an ever-evolving educational process to be at the top of your game, just like our players are.
And for our younger listeners out there who are students or are looking to make their mark in the game and the field of athletic training, share a bit of information about how you got into the game. Maybe your first job, how you got it, and also how you ended up with the Brewers in Milwaukee.
After high school, I went to college. I was in pre-med. Didn't think I was going to be an athletic trainer. My late uncle was an NFL referee, and my uncle Lou Kellogg, and he said, you know what? I think you would be really good at this because you were a high school athlete and you could actually be in medicine but be on the field at the same time. And there's these trainer guys that help out. And so I started down that path. And then I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and the AAA team of the Brewers was there. It was the Denver Zephyrs before the Colorado Rockies ever became an entity. And I did an internship for a season long. And I can remember going home that night and telling my parents, like, hey, I got a job. And it's an athletic trainer with the Denver Zephyrs. And my mother said, how much does it pay? I said, nothing, but I think it's going to work out. And so I went there, and next year I went to Helena, Montana, and then I got a call to get my graduate assistant, and I can remember my father telling me that, they can never take your education away. So I took a pause from the Brewers, and then the next year the Brewers called me, and they had to switch over in their front office, and then went back to Helena, Montana in rookie ball, and then went to Phoenix, and then the next year I became the coordinator and kind of evolved that position. There was probably 3 or 4 of us at that time, Mark Littlefield being one of them. And it's like, okay, you were coordinating all the minor league medical. And then I got an offer from our head athletic trainer, John Adam, and Sal Bando to come to the big leagues and still do being the coordinator at the same time. So I was major league assistant and the coordinator at the same time. And then I became the head athletic trainer 4 years later.
And within that ride to the major leagues, we know a number of people do get stuck in the minor leagues. Ultimately, everyone's goal is to get to the big leagues. How did you manage to stay present during your stint in the minor leagues and not worry so much about the next step in your career?
Yeah, I think your performance shows what you can do. I think you have to focus on what you can control, and that's how you treat people. Are you compassionate? Are you empathetic? Are you very good at assessing and rehabilitating athletic injuries? Do you have good rapport with physicians? I think that's all molded into this athletic trainer that we want to have at every level. And I think now we at the Milwaukee Brewers specifically, we have a curriculum for our athletic trainers to hone in on all of these domains that we think is very important to develop athletic trainers to get to the big leagues.
You talked about your time as one of the first coordinators, someone who helped develop that role and what it is today for the men and women who occupy those positions. Talk a bit about how you feel that role has changed over time since the early days when you were in the position.
Well, I think coordinators back then coordinated, not only athletic training, but maybe strength and conditioning. And, we can remember the days of coming off the field and getting a cup of soup, where we have nutritionists now, and we have chefs, and we have all that stuff. I think the roles, the titles are the same, but the roles are very, very different because exponentially the staffs have gotten larger. And I think that position in the minor leagues is essential to keep everyone on track, not only with their personal development, but their professional development, to ensure that that's what the organization wants out of that position.
And Roger, to wrap things up today, you've been in Milwaukee forever, seemingly an icon in the city within the Brewers organization. When you fully step away, what are you going to remember most about PBATS and your time with the society?
Oh, I think PBATS is at most the utmost educational society to educate their membership and the relationships and the friendships that we've had along the way. We've lost some of our senior leadership that was way back in the 80s, and they actually set the tone for us and my generation. And then hopefully my generation is able to teach this generation, and then this generation is able to teach that generation of the tradition that PBATS has and the mission that we have to educate ourselves to put the best possible athletic trainers in baseball sports medicine. That's what I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of being a PBATS member.
A huge thanks goes out to Commissioner Selig and Roger Caplinger for graciously sitting down with us in Milwaukee to talk about PBATS and the role athletic trainers have played in the game of baseball. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Inside Athletic Training. We hope you've gained valuable insights, inspiration, and knowledge to fuel your athletic training journey. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite platform. And also, stay connected with us on pbats.com for more news about athletic training and sports medicine.